Hey guys, we're back. I'm back on the Camaro again, getting some work done, and honestly, it's super cold lately. So we haven't done a whole lot of work here in the garage, but it's warmed up enough today that I can actually kick the little electric heaters on and make it warm enough in here for me to work without my fingers losing feeling. So we're gonna do that. Honestly, all I wanna do today is get some stuff cleaned up. And by cleaned up, I mean the wiring. So let me show you what I'm talking about. It's this jumble, this mess. Look at this, it's gross. And it's all over the place. I got these wires floating around, these wires, these random wires, and then more to go over here. I mean, it is a bit of a rat's nest. And you guys know why. It's because we were doing a ton of thrashing work to get this car running. But now that it is, it's time to clean some of this stuff up so it's not quite so, well, unsightly. So let me talk to you about what I'm going to do to hopefully make this a little bit better. Now when it comes to the Chevelle, I already did some of this, and you guys can see this. Nice, neat wire tracing all the way back up here. All loomed, nothing crazy, not a lot of stuff hanging out. Everything's nice and tidy, which is how I like to keep it, right? We should be as tidy as we can with our wires, especially once we get, our scenarios with all those wires figured out and we've stopped doing all the wiring mess. So this stuff is called Techflex. I got it from Wire Care, and let's show you that box. So this is the stuff, Techflex. This one's 3/4, and this one's 1 inch. This is for the beefy stuff, for the big harnesses. This stuff is actually pretty cool. It's a split loom, so you can see that it's got a little bit of a wrap to it, so you can run it on wires that are already attached. You don't have to disconnect it from one end. There is a tool, or a set of tools actually, that you can use to route this on, which I use to varying degrees of success when the hoses are connected or the wires are connected at both ends. But it still can work, and it works pretty well. But even without the tool, you can still, with a little bit of patience, get this stuff worked around your wiring harness however you need to make it smooth. You do want to cut it with a hot knife, which I bought specifically for putting this stuff on, and it worked pretty well. So that's the stuff that we're going to use. I actually have some shorter runs of this in smaller diameters as well, but I don't know how much, if at all, that's going to come into play in this particular job, because most of what we have to do in the Camaro is pretty thick stuff. So the first step that I like to do with this stuff is to start consolidating the wires as much as we possibly can. So all of these wires are all sort of jumbled up and bunched up together. You do sort of have to start to make sense of these wires on their own before you can start figuring out where your looms even need to be, where you need to wrap it. Because you don't want to start off blindly on this and then end up painting yourself into a corner. So what I found is best is just using a little bit of the Tessa tape, which is that sort of electrical wiring. It's not electrical tape, it's a fabric tape. But it's pretty easy to do and undo. So I use that stuff in short strands just to sort of tape these off into my rough wiring looms to make sure I have a general idea of how I want to get things attached and how I want to route them. And then once I've got that done, then we'll go ahead and figure out our lengths for that material. We'll cut them with the hot knife, and then we'll try to wrap them on. So that's what I'm doing. So we've got our length of tubing. I already cut this, melted the ends, so it's not going to fray on us. I didn't bother breaking out the hot knife for this. Now we're going to show you how to install this with this tool, which is actually pretty slick. You can do it without the tool if you just want to sort of wrap it around yourself, and you can do that. It's not too bad. This wire bundle, or this Techflex stuff, wraps around itself about 25%, so you can just sort of feed it in and smooth it along. The tool makes it a lot easier. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by installing this little hook piece inside the tubing and get us started. Oops. We'll start here, get this piece installed in our tubing. So just start it off there. Make sure that's wrapped all the way around it. And now we're going to rotate the tool so that that hole is completely aligned. And we'll insert our wire in and lock it. Now, all we got to do is pull this through. And this installs our wire. You do have to be careful of your wire bundles, right? If you've got too much stuff in there. And it doesn't fit inside the tool very well. I've got a little bit too much tape in a couple of spots here. There we go, back inside the channel. And done. Now we just remove the tool and we're there. So that's it. That piece of wire is now nicely played inside of here. It's all protected, and this stuff is vibration rated, so it's perfect for an engine compartment because it's not going to let anything abrade your wires. Make sure everything's in there nice and clean. Yep, and we're good. And that's just one section done. So now we've got to do that with the rest of the sections here, but it should be relatively easy. And it's really just a question of how much of this stuff you really want to use and how much you want to attach and how much you want to leave free. But you can join these up with different sizes. This is the 1/2 inch size, fairly small. And this allows us to just sort of feed this in here. And we will work a little bit later on making sure that we wire tie this stuff off, keeping it in a nice, safe place, making sure that we have enough slack for everything. But that's going to keep it nicely wired. So now, let's move on to the other ones. Now for this particular wire, I'm going to try this the manual way just because I think it's going to be easier in this case. We're starting off with one wire and then joining up with another. So I think it's going to be easier to just try to do this manually. And then I'll show you what I do to make sure that this wire doesn't slip out later, since this is sort of a 1 into 2 situation. Got a little too much here, but that's okay. We'll just make a quick snip. And we're going to finish this off with some tape anyway. So no harm, no foul. The reason I want you to cut this with a hot knife is because it is sort of a plastic material and it's braided. So if you don't cut it with a hot knife or if you don't melt the edges of it, it'll fray at the ends, which we don't want. And I always have a practice as I've used this stuff of just cutting off a little bit of this Tessa tape and then wrapping the finished end with it, just to sort of give me some extra insurance that that's not going to fray. And that's what we're going to do here too at this intersection. So you can see right here, we're going to let that wire just be bare, but I don't want it popping out of this thing, so I'm going to throw some tape on either side. And the tape is just going to help close up on the loom, so it won't allow that loom to split at that intersection anymore. And hopefully these things stay put. They have for me in the past, so I'm hoping my luck continues. This stuff is not very inexpensive. I mean, it's not crazy, but if you're going to buy a bunch of it, it'll cost you some money. I got mine from WireCare. You can order it from some other places as well. You do not have to get the tool if you want to save a couple bucks. I did when I got it, just to make sure that I was properly equipped. Glad I got it, but it's not absolutely necessary. All right, so that's another wire set done. Now we're going to move on to these guys. So this is just this side, and already immensely better, right? I mean, we still gotta wire tie some stuff up and out of place, but oh my goodness. It's like just so much better. We don't have that tangle of wires. Everything's clean and neat. Everything's organized, and it's all protected. Now, just gotta do the other side. Well, that's it for this one. We got this looking pretty darn clean. Now, it's not perfect. It's far from perfect. Perfect from afar, but we've got this a lot cleaner now. Everything is really wrapped up and tied up. Really, it's an easy thing to do. I think this took me all of maybe a couple of hours of just poking around here and taking my time and getting this done. Didn't really need a whole lot of special tools to get it done, but it really does make a difference in how the engine compartment looks. It's going to make a difference in how you're feeling about it, and it's going to protect your wires. It's going to protect everything that you've worked so hard to set up. It's worth doing, guys. And honestly, you can do it a lot cleaner than what I did here, but this is a first pass, and we know that this car is a work in progress anyway. So just before Declan ended up stopping driving the IROCs, just before the first snow and the first cold came, we had an issue. He had an issue, and that is that his tachometer stopped working. It did some really weird stuff. He called me and said, hey, it was revving up to like 6,000 RPM. I was like, really? Was it? Because you would know, right? You would hear it. But that's what his tach was doing. And then eventually the tach just kind of stopped working at all. Now this coincided with the time when we figured out that my wiring to the alternator wasn't right. So his car wasn't charging, the battery ended up dying on his drive to school. We got all of that straightened out, but the tachometer is still very unpredictable. So I did a little bit of digging, and it turns out this is actually a common flaw in these third-gen Camaros, specifically in this like 82 to 89 range. So I looked up a solution for how to fix it, and the answer really is you got to replace the board. Now, this gets into a bit of electronic techie speak that I don't completely understand, but the basic gist that I understand is that there's some pieces on the board that basically will get blown out if you drop the power to the car or if you have a power surge through the car. And that will cause the tachometer to stop working correctly. So I looked it up, and it turns out there is a fix. So I'll give a shout out to this guy, even though I don't think he really needs it, because everybody who has a third gen who has a problem with their tach is using this guy. But it's called Cajun Tach Shop. You can find them on eBay, and that's what I did. I guess back in the day, what he was doing is doing sort of a core return thing where you'd send him a broken circuit board and he'd fix it and send you another one. But now they're really just making these things from scratch. So that's what we got. It's this little guy. It's just a little board that replaces the board that's in there. And this is with updated, more current technology that's a little bit more bulletproof than what was in the car originally. So we're going to go ahead and swap this out, which proves to be, or says it's going to be, a pretty easy thing. So let's see about that. And before I set off to do this and to get this work done, I did try to get some footage of what this tach is doing. And of course, in true Gremlin mechanics fashion, it wouldn't do it when I wanted to capture it and show you guys. If I can find some video online to sort of splice in with it to show you what it was doing from somebody else, I'll try to do that. But really, the big thing to remember here is just that the tach wasn't responding properly. It was either way over revving or it was sitting buried at zero. Either one of those are unacceptable, and they're not giving us a read on what the engine is doing. And especially with Declan as a new driver, his ear isn't tuned to it yet. So we want to get that fixed. So that's what I'm fixing to do now. So I'm sure this is going to be crummy for seeing me now. So that's not going to work. But importantly, you can see the dash. So this will just sort of be my voiceover, I guess, of me working on this. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to remove this black faceplate on the dash. This, around the instrument cluster, that is. This is all removable with a T15 Torx head. You can take this whole front plate off. Nice part about working on these IROC interiors is all these sort of futuristic designed aircraft cockpit accessible Torx head screws make taking the interior on this thing apart really easy. And I've been very grateful for that. Especially after dealing with the Chevelle and, you know, newer cars where everything's hidden and tucked away, and there's all sorts of plastic clips and fasteners to break off. This is very much preferred for me. Alright, once we have those screws removed, we can just take off this black fascia panel. This is nothing more than just a cover. And now we should have a bunch of, I think there's 7/32. We're going to find out here in a sec. Yep. Nuts. And these are holding on the instrument panel cover. So this is the clear lens that covers all the instruments on the dash. We've got to take this out to get access to the dash instruments. Alright, we still got a couple of these screws captive, but they are undone. So I'm just going to try to gently pop this out of place so I don't lose those screws. There we go. Alright, and now we should just have another few of these screw heads that are holding in the instrument cover. This is sort of a black decorative panel. Okay, this is kind of a tight fit, so you're going to be a little bit careful nudging that out of there. But now that's out. Now again, fortunately, most of this stuff is accessible right through the front. It makes it pretty easy in this car. In the Chevelle, I don't have it this easy. I've got to take everything out from behind the dash, so what I'm doing right now isn't even an option. Do be careful about these little green lens pieces. They are just balanced in place there in the dash, so good practice to take them out and put them aside someplace safe so that you don't lose them permanently. Alright, so now we're going to take the Speedo, sorry, not Speedo, the Tach out. We have to remove this to get to the circuit board beneath. And that should only be 3 of these bolts. So this is also the point at which you can replace a lot of bulbs. So if you're in here, think about having these bulbs on hand. I forget which number bulb they are, but I think they're 194s. Or do like I do and get the Oxido replacements, which are LEDs and super, super bright. They're really, really good upgrade options, and they're not terribly expensive. And you can get some money off of them if you order Oxido replacement bulbs through my link that's in the description. So think about that. All right, get the Tach out of here, and it should just sort of unplug from this. Yeah, there we go. So now that leaves us with their circuit board, the original circuit board, attached to these sending units on here. So we'll remove the bolts from these to get that sending unit off, and then we'll replace it with our new circuit board. And this is also oil pump gauge 2, so we're going to have to remove this nut and then these 3, I believe. And that's all we're going to do. Just take those off and replace the board, and we should be good to go. But I think I'm going to need, yep, just deeper socket. There we go. That's the right one. These are not full-on normal nuts. This isn't like a solid nut. These are those like press-on fasteners, so I'm gonna be gentle with these guys. They don't sit on there tight. You can't torque them down tight. These are just like the nuts that you would use on the backside of a badge or an emblem that you're putting into the body. I forget what they call these, but you see they're not real nuts. They're just stamped sheet metal. So it's really easy to over torque these. So don't. Be careful. All right, last nut off. Now we just take this circuit board right off. So this is the old board. That's the new board. So significant difference between the two. There. Actually, it should go this way. That's the right orientation for us to see. So that's matched up 1-to-1. Very different board. This is way more modern printed circuitry. This is kind of wacky. Looks like there's real metal in there. I don't know how they made those, but it's older for sure. So, and you can see there's a lot more going on here. So we're going to reinstall this one now. Now, if we take this for granted that this says install Tach on this side, and we take for granted that they're right about their own product, then you really kind of can't screw this up because there's really only one way for it to go. And we'll show you there. And that's it. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. And we can see the Cajun Czech guys have actually dated this. It's a V8 Tach and 1125. So just last month this was made. And I'm pretty sure I got this pretty early on in November, so they must have just barely had this thing made and shipped out the door. Maybe even made personally for me. I doubt it. All right. So now that's all set. Now I want to try to show you guys something in the close-up. So now the installation instructions are basically just the same thing and now in reverse. But there's a couple of things to look at here. We'll show you hopefully once we get this thing turned on. There's red and green indicator lights here, signal lights that they've put on the board for us. This is a cheat for us to know whether or not this is actually connected properly and working. Then there's also a potentiometer that's attached here. Now this is already pre-dialed in for a V8 engine, but if we ran a timing light against this, for example, and found that what the Tach was saying wasn't lining up perfectly with what the timing light was saying, you can turn this screw in and out to dial in a few hundred RPM to get this thing tuned just right. We're not going to be worried about that just yet. This is not where we're getting finicky, but I like that they have that feature in there. So that's, I sprung the extra couple bucks and get the better board because of those two features. So now we get her in. Okay, that's in place. Now let's get our screws in. And this should be pretty sleazy now to get this in there. We're just buttoning back up. But before we really tighten everything up, I do want to hook the battery up now. And we're going to check for some things. Part of that is checking to see what's going on with this blinker light. That one has been intermittent for us, and I thought I had it working and it stopped. So we're going to see if we can't fix that, and then we're also going to see if our Tach is working. All right. And now it is again. Apparently that was just a connection. Let's hope that's right. Right about where I would expect it to be reading. So we are good. So now it's just reverse order. We're going to put this bezel on first. There are two locating pins here down the bottom, one on either side of the column, that poke through these holes. Oh, so we gotta, there we go. That's what was wrong. Alright, so we get these things located, push it back, we'll put this screw back in first. So that was an easy job overall, and I got to give credit where credit is due. When I first found out about this problem, experiencing it in Declan's car, I immediately did a search to figure out what's going on. I figured it was something electronic, something going on with the gauges. Once I checked the wiring and made sure that that was sound, it was left to Google. And in searching some of the forums, the third gen forums in particular, I found out that this is actually a common problem, and that these boards go bad, and once they do, there is a way to repair them. There's a way to remove certain elements from the board and replace them. I think it's capacitors. Don't quote me on that, because honestly, once I looked at what I was going to have to do, too finicky a work for me to bother with. But I did find that every single place that was recommending a fix for this was recommending the same place, and that's the Cajun Tech shop. I found them on eBay. I think that's the main way that they do business. I believe it was free shipping to get the part. I think it was under $75 to get it, which in terms of just saving me time and anguish, 100% worth it. Because otherwise I would have had to buy the pieces, then bring them back here, take apart the old piece, resolder it with new stuff, and I am rubbish at solder. So not really what I was looking for to sign up. These guys were great. And they also had great instructions. They were perfect. Pictures, they literally told me exactly which tools I was going to need. They told me which size Torx I was going to need. They told me which size, actually they didn't tell me which size Torx, I knew that one. But they told me the size socket that I was going to need to be able to remove the lens and the instrument panel. And they told me the size socket that I was going to need to get off the nuts on the back of the Tach. Everything was laid out. It was very, very step by step. Even if you've never taken apart the dash in your third gen before, this is going to be all you need to do it. And it's a really easy job. So, and it's working right out of the box. So kudos to those guys. Highly recommend. They didn't pay me for this, and I paid full price for the part, just so that you guys know. But you got to give good credit where credit is due. They did a good job. They put out a good product and good support. So I'm happy, and I would recommend it to you guys if you need to fix the Tach in your third gen, or if you just want to avoid it blowing up on you in the future. So you'll find their link to the part that I got in the description below, as well as the link to the Oxido shop, where again you can get a discount if you use our code. All of that is in the description as well, and you're all set. So move on, take this job for yourself, get it done. It's worth it. Well, that's it for us today, guys. It's kind of a simple one, But it's important stuff to me that we got knocked off, and it's the kind of stuff that I didn't have to spend forever in the freezing cold to deal with. We got another heater coming in soon, so hopefully the next time I'm shooting, it's going to be warmer in here, even still. But I wanted to be able to get these things done and get some forward progress back in on the Camaro. Been off for so long for the holidays and all that craziness that I was kind of getting a little bit lackadaisical here, so it was good to get back in here and start doing stuff. And these are only the last couple of ticks that I wanted to get done on Declan's car. Next time we'll talk about a to-do list for what we've got going on for both cars for the winter and the off-season. And otherwise, a little bit of a shorter video with just the wires and the Tach board being replaced. I think this is what I'm going to try to do from now on, guys, is where it's appropriate, just do these shorter videos. It doesn't have to be an hour long, doesn't have to be 45 minutes long. It is what it is for the jobs that we got done today. So this one's a little bit shorter. Let me know what you think. Are you happy with shorter videos? Do you wish I did longer ones? I don't want to make them artificially long. I can sort of hear people picking up their phones and getting distracted when I get these long videos going. So I'm hoping to pick it up a little bit and make some shorter ones. So let me know in the comments, do you appreciate this? Do you like having a little quick short hit so that you can get on the yard and stuff? Or do you crave those longer videos? Let me know in the comments. All right, guys, thanks for watching. If you would, please like and subscribe. It really does help when you like the videos and you share the videos. It gets the algorithms pumping and more people see the videos. So please do that. And until next time, keep on throwing wrenches.